I still remember the day my daughter called me. It was a Thursday afternoon. I was sitting on the back porch, a cup of cold coffee in one hand, Max snoozing at my feet. The phone buzzed on the table, and when I picked it up, her voice exploded through the speaker, all breathless excitement. "Dad." "Oh my gosh. Guess what? We're taking the whole family on a cruise. 7 days. 5-star meals, private balconies, free massages. It's gonna be insane." I chuckled. I could practically see her grinning from ear to ear. For a second, just a second, my heart lifted. Maybe, just maybe, she was calling to invite me too. Maybe they finally wanted me to be part of something again. But then she kept talking. "We need a huge favor. Max, he can't go on the cruise, obviously. Could you watch him for us?" There was a pause. Not a "Hey, Dad, we'd love to take you with us." Not even a "Wish you could come too." Just, "Can you watch the dog?" I forced a smile into my voice. "Of course, sweetheart. Anything for Max." She barely noticed the tightness in my words. "Oh my God, thank you, Dad. You're the best. Seriously, we don't know what we'd do without you," she chirped. Without waiting for much more, she rattled off the cruise details. The spa packages, the unlimited champagne bars, the kids' clubs with water slides, every glittering thing they'd enjoy, without me. By the time she hung up, I sat there staring at the silent phone, the weight of her excitement sinking into me like stones tied to my chest. The backyard stretched out empty. The wind stirred the swing set, creaking on rusty chains. Max lifted his head, sensing something in me, and wagged his tail lazily. I scratched behind his ears, trying to muster a smile. "At least you still want me around, huh, boy?" But deep down, something colder started curling up inside me. Something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Not anger, not sadness. Something worse. Something called forgotten. The morning they left for the cruise was colder than usual, not just in the air, but in the way it all unfolded. Their SUV pulled up to the curb in a screech, doors flying open, kids tumbling out, laughing, shouting about ice cream and dolphins and how big the ship was going to be. I stood on the porch, Max's leash in my hand, waving like some forgotten lighthouse keeper. My daughter barely slowed down. She tossed me a plastic bag stuffed with dog food, treats, a crumpled list of care instructions scrawled in rushed handwriting. No hug. No "wish you were coming, Dad." Not even a real goodbye. "Thanks, Dad. You're the best." "Love you," she shouted over her shoulder, already halfway back to the car. Before I could say a word, the door slammed shut. The SUV peeled out of the driveway, tires crunching over the loose gravel, music blaring from the open windows. And then, silence. Just me, and Max, and the wind. I looked down at the leash in my hand. Max wagged his tail, oblivious. A laugh, bitter, dry, escaped my throat. "Guess it's just you and me, buddy," I muttered. I turned back toward the house, feeling the walls closing in already. 7 days. 7 days of walking a dog, eating leftovers, and sleeping in a house that didn't even feel like mine anymore. 7 days of wondering when, exactly, I had stopped being family and started being just convenient. That night, after Max had finished sniffing every tree in the yard and snoring at the foot of my bed, I poured myself a drink and sat alone in the living room. The TV buzzed mindlessly. I didn't even bother to turn it on. I just sat there, staring at nothing, remembering birthdays I never missed, recitals I clapped through with tears in my eyes. Late nights, I stayed up waiting for her to come home safe. And now? Now I was the afterthought, the backup plan. I looked around the house, the chipped paint, the sagging porch swing, the carpet stained with years of living. Everything I had built, everything I had kept going for everyone else. And for what? A free dog sitter. Somewhere deep inside me, somewhere that had stayed quiet for far too long, a little spark flared to life. Small, but steady. Maybe it was anger, maybe it was sadness, maybe it was something else entirely. Something called freedom. The next morning, I woke up to Max licking my face, tail thumping against the bed. Outside, the sun was climbing up over the trees, bright, golden, almost mocking. Another beautiful day for someone else. I dragged myself out of bed, went through the motions, coffee, toast, walking Max around the block, waving awkwardly at neighbors who didn't really know my name. And all the while, that little spark inside me kept growing. It whispered things I hadn't dared to think in years. You deserve better. You don't have to stay invisible. It's not too late. By noon, I found myself pacing the living room, heart pounding harder with every step. I looked around, at the tired walls, the sagging furniture, the dusty photo frames of memories no one seemed to care about anymore. This house, this life. It wasn't mine anymore. It was a museum for a man who didn't exist. Somewhere between Max's second walk and a leftover sandwich I barely tasted, I made a decision. A real one. A loud one. Even if no one could hear it but me. I grabbed my laptop, dust flying from the old keys, and started searching. At first, it was just random. Flights to anywhere. Apartments in cities I barely remembered visiting. Beach houses with peeling paint and broken fences. But then, I stumbled across something. A listing. A tiny condo in Maui. Oceanfront. 1 bedroom. Tiny kitchen. No garage. Barely enough space for a couch and a coffee table. But God. The view. The endless blue. The sound of the waves. The sun that didn't ask anything of you, except that you show up. I stared at the screen, heart hammering. Could I really do it? Sell the house? Pack a bag? Walk away? Everything inside me, every tired, quiet, forgotten piece, screamed the same answer. Yes. 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 Max barked, snapping me out of it. I laughed, a real broken laugh, and scratched behind his ears. Hang tight, buddy, I whispered. We're about to change everything. Once the decision was made, it was like a dam had burst. I couldn't sit still. I walked room to room, heart racing, hands trembling just a little, touching the worn edges of a life I was finally ready to leave behind. The house suddenly felt too small, too full of echoes. Every photo on the wall. Every souvenir from some long-forgotten family trip. Every scratch on the doorframe where my daughter had measured her height. It all blurred together, a museum of memories that no longer belonged to me. I didn't cry. I thought maybe I would. But instead, I felt lighter with every step. Free. I grabbed a few essentials, clothes, a couple books, some old letters I couldn't quite throw away, and stuffed them into a battered suitcase. Max followed me everywhere, tail wagging, sensing the shift in the air, but not questioning it. I paused at the front door, one hand on the doorknob, the other clutching a pen. There were things I could have said. I could have written a letter filled with anger, or guilt, or a laundry list of all the birthdays, graduations, and late nights I had shown up for without ever asking for anything back. But in the end, It didn't seem worth it. I scribbled 3 simple words on a piece of paper. Take care, Dad. I left it on the kitchen counter, right next to the bag of dog food she had handed me like a tip for a job well done. No second guessing. No looking back. I locked the door behind me one last time, tucked the key under the doormat, and walked away. The sun was just starting to set, painting the sky in violent reds and soft golds. I loaded Max into the passenger seat of my old pickup, turned the engine over, and pulled away from the curb without a single glance in the rearview mirror. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was running away. I felt like I was finally running toward something. And God, it felt good.
I didn't know what to expect when I hit the road. The highway stretched out ahead of me like a ribbon of possibility, but I wasn't sure where it would lead. Not yet. Max sat quietly in the passenger seat, his head resting against the window, the wind ruffling his fur. He seemed content, or maybe he just sensed that everything had changed. As we drove, the landscape shifted. The tall, dry hills of home slowly gave way to rolling, green valleys. I passed through towns with signs I didn't recognize. Some were small and sleepy, others bustling with life, but none of them mattered. None of them had anything to do with the life I was leaving behind. I didn't check my phone. I didn't make any calls. I didn't care to hear what anyone had to say. For the first time in years, I was living on my own terms, and it felt incredible. When I finally reached the coast, the sun was low, casting a warm, golden glow over the Pacific. The ocean was vast, stretching out far beyond what my eyes could see. I pulled into a small beach town, my heart pounding, and parked outside a tiny motel. It wasn't much, but it didn't need to be. I didn't need much. Max jumped out of the truck, stretching his legs. We took a long walk along the shore as the waves crashed against the sand. I could feel the salt air in my lungs, and for the first time in forever, I breathed deep, savoring it. This was living. This was freedom. When I made my way back to the motel, I could feel the weight of the past few days settling on me. Not sadness, not regret. Just a strange peace. I knew I still had a long way to go, a journey that was only just beginning. But standing there, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I realized something. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning. I didn't have to run anymore. I didn't have to be invisible. I didn't have to be second place. For the first time in a long time, I had the chance to write my own story. And I was damn sure I wasn't going to waste it. The first few days in the motel were strange. Not strange in a bad way, but in the way everything felt unfamiliar, like I was still trying to remember how to live for myself. I'd wake up early, the sound of the waves crashing against the shore filling the room. Max would stretch, then jump onto the bed with me, his warm body pressing against mine as if he knew the world was different now. I didn't have a schedule anymore. I didn't have a job to rush to. I didn't have a life to apologize for. It was just me, and the ocean, and the mountains rising up in the distance, like silent witnesses to my new life. I spent the days walking the beach, taking in the salty air, watching the surfers and the tourists who didn't know that I was someone different now. I was someone who had left everything behind, who had walked away from the wreckage of a life that no longer fit. But as peaceful as it seemed on the surface, there was a weight I hadn't expected. Loneliness. It wasn't the quiet kind. It was the kind that crept in during the evening when the sun dipped below the horizon and the beach cleared out. I would sit on the sand, staring at the water, feeling the emptiness settle in my chest like an unwanted guest. I thought about my daughter. I thought about the house I had sold. I thought about what I had lost and what I had gained. Some nights, the thoughts would gnaw at me. I'd wonder if she even noticed I was gone, if she even cared. Maybe she was enjoying the cruise. Maybe she was happy, and I was just some old man who had outlived his usefulness. But then, one night, everything changed. It was a Wednesday, I think. The night sky was clearer than it had been in weeks, stars scattered like diamonds over the water. I had just finished a quiet dinner at a small diner down the road, and I was walking back to the motel when I saw her. A woman. A stranger. She was sitting alone on a bench by the beach, her face illuminated by the glow of a lamp post. She looked out at the water, her expression unreadable. I passed her by at first, but something made me stop. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the loneliness that still clung to me. Maybe it was the sense that I was finally starting to wake up, to be alive again. I took a breath, turned around, and walked over. "Mind if I sit?" She looked up, her eyes wide like she hadn't expected to be noticed. But then she smiled, the kind of smile that wasn't forced, but somehow warm. "Not at all," she said, her voice calm, almost like she'd been waiting for someone. I sat down beside her, the silence stretching between us like an old friend. After a while, I spoke. "It's strange, isn't it? How life can change so suddenly." She nodded slowly, looking out at the ocean. "Yeah. One day everything is the way it's always been, and the next, it's not. It's like you're in the middle of a storm, and you don't even realize it until it's over." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, I realized something. She was right. I had been in the storm for so long, I never saw it coming. Now, the storm was over, and maybe, just maybe, I was ready for what came next. I didn't expect to see her again. The woman by the beach, the stranger? But the next day, there she was, walking down the same stretch of sand, her figure unmistakable against the backdrop of the endless ocean. She seemed so calm, so at peace with the world, while I felt like I was still trying to find my place in it. Something about her presence felt like a quiet invitation. Maybe she was just a passerby. Maybe nothing more than a brief chapter in a strange, unexpected story. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to it. That night, I decided to go back to the same bench by the beach, the spot where we had met. The stars were brighter than ever, and the air was warm, carrying with it the scent of salt and possibility. I sat there waiting. I wasn't sure what I was waiting for, but it didn't take long before I saw her again. She was walking alone, like the night before, her feet leaving prints in the sand that would disappear with the tide. She saw me, and this time there was no hesitation in her step. She walked straight toward me, a small smile playing at the corner of her lips. "You're back," she said, her voice softer than I remembered, like the sound of waves gently lapping at the shore. "I am," I replied, standing up to greet her. "I guess I wasn't done talking yet." She laughed, the sound light and free. "I get it," she said. "Sometimes you need to talk, even when you don't know what to say." We both sat down again, the silence stretching between us comfortably this time. I could feel the weight of her presence beside me, but in a way that didn't feel heavy. It felt natural. "So, what's your story?" she asked after a while. Her gaze was steady, and I knew she wasn't asking for the details of my life. She was asking about me, about the real me. I hesitated. The truth was, I wasn't sure who the real me was anymore. The man who had walked away from everything, or the one who had just started to see life in a different light? I don't know, I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. I've been running from the past, running from myself. But I don't think I can run anymore. She nodded as if she understood, and for a moment the world seemed to pause. It was as if time itself was waiting for me to figure it out, to speak the words that had been building up inside me. I'm just figuring things out, one day at a time, I added, my voice stronger now, as if saying it aloud made it real. You don't have to have it all figured out right away, she said, her eyes soft. None of us do. We just have to keep moving forward. I looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. But just as I thought the conversation would flow easily, as if we were two old friends catching up, a voice broke through the quiet. Dad? The word hung in the air, and my heart skipped a beat. I turned sharply, the familiar, unwanted voice cutting through the calm like a knife. There she was, my daughter. She stood at the edge of the sand, her arms crossed tightly, her eyes scanning me like a stranger. What are you doing here? She demanded, her tone colder than I remembered. I stood up slowly, my mind racing. I hadn't expected this. I hadn't prepared for it. What are you doing here? I asked, my voice tight. She stepped closer, her gaze hard. You just left. You left without a word. I had no idea where you went. I felt the anger rise in me, but it wasn't the same kind of anger from before. It wasn't the rage of someone who had been hurt or betrayed. It was the anger of someone who had spent too many years living for someone else's expectations. I didn't leave you, I said quietly, my voice steady now. I left my past. I left the life that was never mine, and I'm finally living for myself. Her expression softened for a moment, but the walls were still up. You should have told me. You should have let me know. I didn't need your permission, I replied, the words leaving my mouth before I even thought about them. I don't need anyone's permission to live my life. The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. But just as quickly as the tension built, it broke. My daughter's shoulders slumped, and she let out a deep sigh, as if the fight had drained her too. I didn't know, she muttered. I didn't know how to deal with you leaving, with everything changing. I watched her for a moment, my heart heavy. Maybe I had expected more anger, more frustration. But all I saw now was a girl, no longer the child I once knew, but someone still learning how to navigate the storm of adulthood. I didn't leave you, kid, I said gently. I needed to find my own way. She looked at me, her eyes filled with something that resembled understanding. But there was still distance between us, an ocean I wasn't sure how to cross. I don't know if we can fix this, she said, her voice low, but I'm willing to try. The next few days felt like I was walking through a fog. My daughter and I hadn't talked much after that night on the beach. She was still trying to process everything, and I could see the conflict in her eyes whenever we spoke. I knew she wanted to understand, to be angry, but also to be connected again. But there were too many years of silence, too many unanswered questions for things to just fall back into place. She was still the same person, my daughter, the girl I raised, but in so many ways, she was a stranger to me now. It hurt, but I couldn't deny it. The years had built walls between us, and no matter how much I wanted to tear them down, I didn't know how. So, I did what I had to do. I gave her space. I let her come to me when she was ready. In the meantime, I kept going about my days in Hawaii. I kept walking the beach, letting the sound of the waves calm the storm inside me. I kept living my life, piece by piece, day by day. But the question kept echoing in my mind. Was I really living? Or was I just escaping? I hadn't thought about it until one afternoon when I was sitting at the bar, nursing a cold drink, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and orange. The bartender, a woman named Kelly, was busy wiping down glasses, her movements automatic. "You seem a little lost, man," she said after a while, her voice friendly but direct. I laughed, though it felt hollow. "I guess I've been lost for a while now." She smiled, leaning on the bar. Everyone's lost in their own way. Some people just don't know it yet. I wasn't sure if I was ready to talk, but there was something about her casual demeanor that made me want to open up. "I don't know what I'm doing here, really. I left everything behind. But now I'm wondering if I've just run away from my life." She raised an eyebrow. "You think you've been running?" "Maybe," I said, looking out at the horizon. "Maybe I thought this would fix things. I thought if I just walked away, I could start over. But now, I'm not so sure anymore." Kelly didn't say anything right away. She just nodded like she understood, like she had seen this before. "You don't have to fix everything all at once," she said finally. "Sometimes the best thing you can do is just be. Let life catch up with you." Her words hung in the air, and for a moment I thought I understood. Maybe that's what I'd been missing all along. The ability to just be present, to stop running from everything. But before I could even process her advice, I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. I pulled it out, glancing at the screen. It was a message from my daughter. "Dad, can we talk?" I stared at the message for a long time. My heart raced, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. Talk? After everything that had happened, after all the years of silence, she wanted to talk? I didn't know if I was ready for this, but I couldn't ignore the pull inside me, the need to make things right. I texted back, "Sure, when and where?" She replied almost immediately, "I'm at the coffee shop near the pier. Can you come?" I didn't waste another second. I told Kelly I'd be back soon, and I left the bar, walking quickly down the road toward the pier. When I arrived, I saw her sitting at one of the outdoor tables, her back to me. She didn't turn around when I approached. She was looking out at the ocean, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee, her posture stiff. I stood there for a moment, unsure of how to start. The words felt stuck in my throat. "Dad?" she said, breaking the silence without even looking up. "I don't know how to say this, but I think I've been selfish." I wasn't expecting that. I thought she was going to shout at me, accuse me of abandoning her. But instead, she looked small, like a girl who had grown up too fast, forced to deal with things she never should have had to. "I wasn't ready for you to leave," she continued, finally turning to face me. Her eyes were full of unshed tears. "But I've been thinking about it, and I think I understand why you did it. Maybe not everything, but you had to go, didn't you?" I didn't know what to say. The truth was, I hadn't known if leaving was the right choice. But hearing her say that, hearing her understand, made me feel like a weight had been lifted. "I had to leave," I said quietly. "But I didn't want to hurt you. I never meant to hurt you." She nodded, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "I know. And I don't know if we can fix everything, but I want to try. I want to start over, if that's okay with you." The words hung in the air, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe we could make this work. Maybe we could rebuild. Not just the relationship we once had, but a new one. A better one. I smiled. A real smile this time. I'd like that. I couldn't remember the last time I had felt this nervous. Standing there, facing my daughter, I knew something had shifted. Something deep inside both of us. She wasn't the little girl I had once known, the one who would run to me with open arms after a long day. And I wasn't the father who could give her every answer, every reassurance. We had both changed. But as we sat there at that table by the pier, something else began to stir between us. It wasn't just the hope of rebuilding what we once had. It was the realization that we could create something new, something better. I've been thinking a lot about the past, she said, breaking the silence between us, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup. About everything that happened. And I think I never really understood why you left. I was angry, yes, but I didn't get it. I didn't know how much you were struggling. I was taken aback by her words. The openness, the vulnerability in her voice. It felt like we were both finally seeing each other for who we really were. Not father and daughter in the traditional sense, but two people, broken and raw, trying to put themselves back together. I wasn't struggling for you to see, kid, I said softly. I was trying to keep it together for everyone, for you, for your mom, for the world. But inside, I wasn't okay. I couldn't be. She looked at me, her eyes full of understanding. I think I understand now, she said quietly, but I didn't know how to say it. I was angry, I was confused, but the truth is, I was scared too, scared of losing you. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I had never truly realized how much my leaving had affected her. She had always been so strong, so independent. I thought she would just handle it, just get over it. But hearing her say it, it made me realize how wrong I was. I never meant to hurt you, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I thought I was doing what was best. But I was wrong. We sat there for a long time, the sound of the waves crashing against the pier filling the silence. For the first time, there was no bitterness, no anger between us. Just two people, trying to navigate the wreckage of the past and figure out how to move forward. And then, just when I thought we might finally be able to breathe again, the phone in my pocket buzzed. I pulled it out, and when I saw the message, my stomach dropped. It was from the lawyer. The divorce papers were ready. My heart pounded in my chest as I stared at the screen. I hadn't expected this. I thought the process was over, that everything had been settled. But there it was, in black and white, the finality of it. I felt the world shift beneath me, the ground suddenly unsteady. My daughter noticed the change in my expression and leaned in, her voice tentative. Dad, what's wrong? I didn't know what to say. The weight of the moment was too much. The finality of the divorce. The end of something I had tried so hard to hold on to. It all felt like a cruel joke. Nothing, I lied, shoving the phone back in my pocket. It's nothing. But she wasn't fooled. She saw the way my hands trembled, the way my eyes betrayed me. I can tell when something's wrong, she said softly, reaching out to touch my arm. You don't have to carry it all by yourself. I'm here for you, Dad. Her words should have been comforting, but instead, they felt like a burden I wasn't sure I could bear. I didn't want to bring her into this. She had already been through so much. But the truth was, I didn't know how to carry it alone anymore. The phone buzzed again, and this time, I didn't ignore it. I took it out, staring at the screen with a sinking feeling. It was the same message, but this time, there was a notification attached. A reminder. The divorce hearing was set for next week. I couldn't breathe. This was it, the final piece of the puzzle, the last thing tying me to the life I had left behind, the end of a chapter, the closing of a door I hadn't wanted to walk through. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the pavement. "I need some air," I said, my voice tight, my chest constricting with panic. "Dad!" she called. But I was already walking away, the waves crashing louder in my ears with each step I took. I walked along the pier, not caring about the people around me, the seagulls overhead. All I could hear was the pounding of my heart, the noise of my thoughts swirling, consuming me. I had made a choice when I left everything behind. I had chosen freedom, chosen to run from a life that had suffocated me. But now, I wasn't so sure anymore. The divorce wasn't just a piece of paper. It was a death. It was the final severing of a connection that had once meant everything to me. It was the moment I realized that running away had consequences, and not just for me, but for everyone I had left behind. I stopped at the end of the pier, looking out at the horizon, where the sun had almost disappeared below the waves. The world seemed to slow down, and for a moment, I let myself feel everything. The anger, the sadness, the relief. The weight of it all was suffocating, but it was also the only thing that made me feel alive again. And then, as if on cue, my phone buzzed again. This time, I didn't hesitate. It was from my lawyer. It was the final notification. The divorce had been approved. I had nothing left.